All right, Facebook and everyone out there, we are officially live. We are so excited here. I'm Kristen Gillum. I am here with Pastor Cedric Carter from Ninth Missionary Baptist Church, or Ninth Street Missionary Baptist Church. Pastor Carter, how you doing? How you feeling?
I'm feeling good.
Feeling
real
good?
good.
I'm super excited when I got the call about an event that happened over Father's Day. I want you to walk us through like what happened and explain to the audience like what that felt like. So walk us through what happened on the weekend of Father's Day.
Okay, sure. I had actually just finished preaching a sermon about a demonic spirit, and shortly after, didn't know that a gentleman was getting upset, mad, angry throughout the course of the service. I was told that he was getting up, walking back and forth during the actual sermon to a member. And shortly afterwards, a couple came down wanting to join the church. And so after they joined the church, after they came down, and I took them to my office, I heard that the individual was up shouting all types of obscenities, just cursing all throughout the sanctuary. And so after hearing about that, the gentleman sent me a text message on my phone. And after he sent me that text message, he actually stated that he wanted to actually speak with me at the church. Well, while speaking to the family, he decides that he's going to call me now because I didn't respond. So after him calling, I pick up, answer the phone, and at that point, he decides that he is going to now just start yelling on the phone. And so I didn't say anything. I continuously talk with the family. I tell the family that we're going to pray. And before making this decision, I want you to literally pray. And I'm going to pray. And so I began to pray. And the gentleman gets mad because all he hears on the phone call is pray. And thinking I'm saying to him that he needs to pray. Well, shortly afterwards, the gentleman walks down to the basement of the church and begins yelling, screaming, cursing. And one of the senior members is between him. I'm dealing with the family. At this time, I decide that I'm going to hurry up and end this prayer. And once I end my prayer, I tell the family to remain in the office with my secretary. She sits in there with the family. I walk out and he begins cursing me out, saying, "There's the MF, there's the MF, there's the MF right there. I'm tired of you. I'm tired of you talking about me in your sermons. I'm tired of you. I'm tired. I'm sick and tired of you." And he's cursing doing all of this. And after all of that, I walk over to him because I didn't want to yell in the basement. It was at least 20 people in our basement at the end of worship service. So I walk over towards him and I ask him, "What is going on?" I call him by name. "What is the problem? What's the issue?" And he said, "Get away from me. Get away from me." And he's cursing at the whole duration of this. And I was like, "You need to just really calm down, calm down." And so members were getting in between and really trying to calm him and de-escalate him, which was not helping at all, probably doing more harm than good. And at this time, the individual walks over to we have been collecting items for the flood in Fort Smith. The individual walks over to this group of bleach Purex that we have there at the church, decides he's going to uncap it. So he takes the top off and he tells me, if you walk closer to me again, or if you come closer to me again, I'm gonna get you, I'm gonna douse you with this bleach. And so at this point, one of the mothers of the church decides that she's going to tell me, "Pastor, just come outside." And I tell her that I'm not coming outside because I'm not upset, I'm not mad, I'm not angry, I'm not frustrated, I'm not anything. So I'm gonna stay right here. And so she asked me again. Matter of fact, she asked me 3 times, and finally on the third opportunity, I tell her, "No, I'll come on outside." So I walk outside with her. My youth pastor is standing at the door along with the deacon in front of the door. And so at this point, my youth pastor is a big guy. He's about 6'3", 6'4", and he's standing in front of the door. The gentleman burst through the doors, come outside, and we are all standing there outside. And he said, "I told you, if you came near me again, And mind you, I'm standing outside already. He runs to the door and he says, "If I told you I was gonna get you, and if you come near me again, I'm gonna douse you with this bleach." So I'm thinking like perfect opportunity for me to walk back inside of my church. And as I'm turning to walk back inside of the church, the gentleman takes the bleach and he douses me with the bleach, scorching hot outside. At that point, my after I'm doused with the bleach, I'm walking back in. My deacon stops me, and he says, "Let's go to the restroom. Let me pour water on your back so that you don't have any burns." Well, make my way back to Dallas. Make a long story short, I now have chemical burns, permanent chemical burns in my back because of this event, and constantly on medication because of it. And that is pretty much it. I told during the actual process, I was telling some of the members to call the police, and police showed up not in a great length of time. Pretty much it took them a while to get there, but at the same time, police were called. The gentleman has now been arrested, no longer a part of our church. He is actually banned from the church. And so here we have it. I couldn't speak about it throughout the process as we were going through the courts and the court proceedings, and now here it is. I'm able to speak as of today regarding this event, and it's been so many different lies that has been told, and I just simply wanted to tell my side and my story, simply because I don't want any other church, I don't want any other pastor to feel like they have to accept and go through situations like this. I think it was a training opportunity for my church in a form of de-escalation. My background is working with those individuals who are emotionally disturbed, and so I think it was a great opportunity for us to train. You know, sometimes you have to disperse a crowd and leave an individual in a building to literally, if they want to tear it up, and this is the way that we've been trained to tear the building, allow them the opportunity to tear up that building, but as long as nobody else is hurt. But from a safety standpoint, as a pastor, my job is to maintain the safety and the security of our parishioners at the church. And I think that was taken care of, but at the same time, I just didn't want anybody else to ever experience what I have experienced in the form of this type of event. This individual has made various threats. I went to the law enforcement there in Fort Smith a year or so ago. We put some things in place for this individual, and this was literally the outcome. And so I'm speaking to all pastors, all churches. If you don't have security in your church, get security. You need to put people in place and know who your members are and who your member, and know who those individuals, if there are visitors to come in, please be aware, make yourself aware. But also, if you have some folks that suffer from mental illness, you guys need to be fully trained and fully made aware of how to de-escalate and calm an individual versus escalating them. And so this has been a eye-opener for me, because I never ever thought in the life of ministry that I would literally have to go through a process like this. But also from verbal attacks from people that don't even know me. And daily, it continues to go on, just because I have yet to speak over the pulpit about it. I have yet to call a church meeting about it, simply because I didn't want to tear my church apart over something that was minute, very small, but that has turned out to be very major. And I feel as though I'm doing a justice to all pastors and all churches by speaking on it. And I just want people to know, you don't have to be afraid of individuals in the church, because at the end of the day, yeah, church is a hospital, but you have to realize when you cannot help certain individuals, and certain situations are going to arise, and you literally have to know how to handle them.
Mm-hmm. That's great. First of all, thank you for telling your story, just because I think that these type of things happen all the time in churches, right? Maybe not this exact scenario, but they happen, right? Threats, whether it's like, I'm going to kill you, whether it's something small, big, right. And you don't hear a lot of pastors talking about it over the pulpit with the congregation. So number one, thank you for being bold enough just to tell your story.
Mm-hmm.
When you talk about the individual mental illness, I understand like there was some PTSD or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Can you talk a little bit about that? And I guess did he use it as an excuse, or as we talk about like the reason why he was lashed out, or do you think it was demonic? Because you had the message on demonic forces, and then all of a sudden it kind of stirred up this individual. So you think it was a little bit of both? Because demons are real, right? There's demonic spirits that are real. So what do you think about like how that played into like your message?
I feel as though the message literally spoke to the individual. It spoke to what was on the inside of him, which was those demonic spirits, and it showed its face. And so the individual has stated that he suffers from PTSD. I have did my own personal study, talked with different psychologists as it pertains to PTSD, and this was not a form of his disability. It was actually a choice that this individual made, and you can't come down off of a mental high when you are really at a point of escalation. You just don't come down within 5 minutes. There's actually some tear dropping that actually takes place even when you're coming down off of that escalation, and none of this took place. And so by me studying and having somewhat of a background in mental illness and working with individuals who are emotionally disturbed every day, none of that took place. And so when an individual blatantly tells you that I'm going to do this to you and feel no remorse at the end of it is, it's kind of disheartening.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So what's your best advice for any pastor or anyone under leadership within the church to deal with mental illness? Obviously, we want to pray for them, like, right? As Christians, we pray. Is there counseling they need to go to? Like, what is the practical things that leaderships in the church need to do to help mental illness?
I think the church helps those individuals as much as they can, and that's through the Word of God, through prayer, but also if there is someone within your church or the church body that you have set aside that literally can help, or are licensed or certified psychiatrists or psychologists to help individuals with these different illnesses, then please don't be afraid to refer them. And then also, just from a social standpoint, from a social skill standpoint, don't be afraid to offer those things. But know who you are dealing with within your congregation, and don't hide the fact or negate the fact that some of our folks in our congregation are literally suffer from illnesses like this, and with different disabilities. And you play more than just a role of a pastor. So sometimes you have to be that counselor. Sometimes you have to be that listening ear. And most of all, I think that you literally have to look out for the safety and the welfare of your entire congregation.
That's a great answer. So with churches, that's going to be a little challenging, right? Depending on the size of your church. How does a church, or how does a pastor lead a congregation or lead their leadership team in terms of gathering that information? Do they take a survey? How do you... small groups, like what's the best way to like keep a pulse check on like what your members are going through?
I think you literally with small groups. I also think surveys work well, but I think it's more or less of being in tune with them and having a constant open lines of communication. And individuals will normally tell you what they're experiencing, if they're having certain thoughts in their minds or in their head that is causing them to either not get sleep at night or causing them to be restless. And when you hear those type of words being used, then I think at that time you literally have to take action.
Yeah. How important is it for churches to I guess partner with the local police? Because you said that it took a while for them to come out, right? And we're seeing a lot of that when it comes to underserved communities, right? African American communities, Hispanic communities, like sometimes they just take their time, right, to come out. So how important is it to partner with our local police? And what step did you take to like partner with them to ensure that you guys are like safe in your church?
We actually, all the elders, the deacons of the church, met with the various detectives and some of the sergeants there on the police force, and we put a plan in place. We actually now have security at our church, and we're taking some other measures as far as getting some other folks trained to really recognize those types of individuals, or when it comes to certain safety concerns of the church. But the police serves as a resource, and I dare not frown upon our police department, because I think they handled this situation to the best of their abilities, from the police department, from the prosecutors, even the mayor of Fort Smith, Mayor McGill, ended up getting involved in this situation and expressing his concerns, because there was, he really said that he did not want this to take place, especially at a historic church in Fort Smith. And so we've met with several key individuals regarding this actual event, and just not wanting it to take place ever again in the city of Fort Smith.
Great. Last two questions. Is there anything that you think that you or any of your leadership team would have done differently to de-escalate, or do you feel like everybody handled everything properly? Just looking back on like the outcome, is there anything that you, if you were to give feedback to yourself, like we could have done this or we should have done this to like prevent it or to de-escalate? Because it sounds like you guys handled it pretty well, but just on a like self-reflection tip, like what do you think you guys could have done differently, if anything?
There's always things that you can improve on. Number one is there has to be one main speaker. During this process, there were several individuals trying to calm one person down, and so this person can't focus on the one individual. He's hearing different voices shouting at him, calm down, don't do this, don't do this. And so when you're hearing that as an individual, that's the aggressor, you tend not to hear anything. You just kind of like spouse out, or you blank out. And one thing that I will be training my leadership team on is that there has to be one voice. And sometimes you have to leave the scene in order to allow the safety part of it to be what it's supposed to be, and leave in a positive light, and not have so many people forcing themselves trying to de-escalate one individual, but know that you have one main communicator. And I think that's what we actually failed at, is not having that one main communicator, and it should have been the pastor, which was me. So it's just training.
Yeah, training and experience and learning and reflection. And I think that's an honest answer. So thank you just for being honest with your congregation, with the audience here, and for being vulnerable. I think that's a great thing. My last question talks about forgiveness, right? We're a church, you're a pastor. Like, walk us through the process of, like, even though he's banned, which is the consequence of your actions, walk us through like that process of being forgiven or forgiving him.
That's one of the hardest things, being even in my shoes, being in my role, to even experience that and go through it, and having to still love on an individual. And I made this statement to his attorney, is that I've already forgiven him, still love him. At the same time, and that's what the Bible teaches us, to still love our fellow man or brother or sister in Christ, regardless of the outcome of despite our the different flaws that we have and the things that we go through that may be not so great. We're still supposed to forgive them, and that's what the church should be marked on and then based upon, is love and forgiveness. And I don't hold any ill feelings or harsh feelings toward the individual. As a matter of fact, when it came down to him receiving the sentence that he was given, I still stood up to say no in some key areas. So You know, it's not for us to condemn anybody, but it is for us to shed light to make sure that we are living according to the word and the will of God.
That's awesome. So you heard it first. Pastor Cedric Carter, 9th Street Missionary Baptist Church, lead pastor here. Is there anything else you want to say before we close our interview? We want to encourage other pastors to kind of speak out about it in a very positive way. I feel like it was a really positive interview, even though you went through a very negative situation. So is there anything else you want to, push other pastors and leadership to like share these type of experiences, because we're all human, right? We all have feelings, we all have emotions. Sometimes we have to take an individual to court, right? That's a part of life. So is there anything else you want to share with other pastors, other leaderships, or other people in leadership in churches, and anything to anyone as we close?
You know, in closing, I simply say that God knows all of our hearts. And sometimes you have to really take a stand with individuals that sometimes cause disturbances or disruptions in church, and know that you are doing it for the betterment of the church, but also for the kingdom. God is not the author of confusion, and that's in any church. And so we literally have to be mindful of who we are in church for, what we're there to do, and that's to worship and serve God. And the reason why we're doing it is because simply God has given his only begotten Son, Jesus Christ, who suffered, bled, and died on Calvary's cross for all of our sins, so that all of us may have the right to eternity. And so we're to uphold our Christian values and our Christian principles. And as long as we do what thus says the Lord will always have the last and the final say. So my prayer and my thoughts to all churches is, don't be afraid to speak up. Don't be afraid to say, you know what? No, that's not going to be tolerated. But just know who you're doing, what you are doing is for the betterment and the building of the kingdom.
Amen. Couldn't have said it better myself. All right. We're signing off. Thank y'all for watching. Thank you, entire 9th Street Missionary Baptist Church membership, and everyone else in our audiences. Thank you for watching, and thank you, Pastor.
Bless you.
Bless you.